Welcome to the podcast. It starts with you, with me, Vic O'Farrell. I ask my guests, by understanding their own behaviours and personality style, what impact on their lives, both personally and professionally, has there been? What is it like to live and work with someone of your style? I mean, this is not about labelling people, putting people in boxes, or an excuse for bad behaviour. It's about recognising, understanding and respecting that we're all different. And what impact can you have on others by looking in the mirror? Because it starts with you. So welcome to another episode of It Starts With You. And I am really excited today because there are going to be some amazing stories, I know, to be joined by Rikki Arundel. Do you want to introduce yourself, who you are and what it is that you do and bring to this world?
I'm a most first and foremost, I'm a speaker. I've been speaking for a long time now, a long time, for about 50 years. I also changed my gender about 25 years ago, and that gave me some huge insights into the way in which people treat you when you're suddenly different. But this whole topic of understanding people has been just a passion all my life, just been something I absolutely love. So I now coach people in speaking more than anything else, but so that's where I am.
Amazing. And I know that we've already had on our pre-recorded chats that, every time I speak to you, you just got so many amazing stories that are not just stories to laugh at, but actually stories to learn from as well. So when you got into understanding this whole profiling and personality stuff, what impact would you say, because you live and breathe it now, but what impact would you say that it's had on you both personally and professionally?
I did the first course I did on this was with an organization called Mind Dynamics, which had been the training arm of Holiday Magic, one of the big pyramid selling companies of the 1970s that had got made illegal, but the training arm carried on. And their whole approach on sales was that you need to understand the people that you deal with, and that as you understand the people, then you can adapt the way in which you sell to them. And my early career was all in sales and marketing, so that was a crucial part of the whole thing. But I think also I think we're all fascinated, aren't we, on trying to understand ourselves a bit better. So I think often when people get into the whole profiling side, the first step is I want to understand more about myself. Is that really who I am? What are my strengths and weaknesses?
So what style are you? If we talk, whether you want to talk in colours or disc terms or whatever profiling tool, what is your personality?
Yeah, it's yellow. If we were talking colors, it'll be influencer. If you're on disc, it'll be uh, promotional promoter. Whatever. There are so many of these. I think I've actually studied about 6 different versions of this. The big one in the sales industry was always Wilson Learning, from Larry Wilson, and that was the driver. Expressive. Expressive, I think, is how I came out there.
Mm.
Um, so that told me quite a lot. It told me why I was a speaker, because expressives, promoters, we like to promote, we like to express. We become barristers, actors, speakers, people who can promote. We don't do very well is listen.
When we have no self-awareness, we're not very good at that, because I'd definitely say
Yes.
that I wasn't aware of that before I started doing what I do 10 years ago. Um, so what would you say is the biggest impact that it's had on your life by flexing and adapting who you are?
It enabled me to. I was never particularly good at negotiating, but once I understood the whole idea of understanding people quickly, and I think what I was lucky that what happened with this whole process is that some of them, particularly in the Myers-Briggs stuff, you end up with computerized analysis. You get big, huge 10-20 page reports on understanding. That didn't help me. I need to be able to walk into a room, look around the room and think, okay, fine, green. So I
Okay.
need to know from the
Yeah.
moment I connect with someone,
Yeah.
the way they dress, the way they communicate with me, what kind of person am I dealing with? And I think the what I grasp first of all is that we're really looking at two qualities here which intersect in this sort of matrix. One is assertiveness. How assertive are you? From the low assertive to the high, and how responsive are you? Responsive is about your engagement with people, and you put those two. Now, the thing I need to understand very quickly is: are you more or less assertive than me? Are you more or less responsive than me? The colors thing helps me to pick that up quite quickly. But once I understand that, then what I learned was this idea that if I shift my behavior towards yours, don't overdo it, just a slight shift towards you will actually result in you doing the same because we mirror behavior. So
Yeah.
if I shift towards you, you'll shift towards me, and suddenly we find ourselves in a meeting place where actually we can work together. So even when I deal with, I told you sometimes, I worked for a boss once who was described quite accurately once, I think, as slightly to the right of Margaret Thatcher. And I
Oh,
think we
fell
all know.
off then.
Yes, yeah. And we all know Margaret Thatcher, very, very, very much a driver, controller. She was in charge of everything, very red. And most people couldn't get on with this boss. They couldn't get budgets, they couldn't get things coming to them, but I could. And I understood that if I took a proposal to him, if it took more than one side of A4, it was too long. Cut it. It had to be very simple, very clear, to the point. And he was looking to see I got it clear, I understood what I was doing. But the other thing that he really needed to know was that I believed in this so much that I would risk losing my job for it.
Wow.
It was
That's
like, dealing with something. He's very, Alan Sugar's not far off the same kind of style. This guy, this is how you do it. And I used to go to him with the project, and he's just look at my eye, and he knew I really believed in this project. I knew it, believed it could work. And he felt that
interesting.
if I really had that passion behind it and could believe in it, it would come off. And that was it. I got the budget to do some pretty amazing marketing projects simply because I could show him that I got it very clear about what we're trying to do, and I believed in it to the point that at the end of it, if it didn't work, he'd just say, "You're fired." And he used to fire
Yeah.
15% of the management team every year just to keep the rest on their toes. I mean, he was pretty brutal.
Okay, that is brutal. How did it impact your colleagues if you could go in and do that and get the budget for a project and other colleagues were struggling? How did it impact them with you?
Well, if they was the company was a very competitive one that I worked for at the time. We were even my job description when I got the job, they said you to be a maverick. I was product manager, responsible for some of the products, and they said, you're competing against the other product managers, and you'll be judged on how well you do against them. It's a competition. You're a maverick, and do it. So if I could get budgets and they couldn't, that would sometimes make people feel a bit
Yeah,
annoyed and irritated. As far as my team were concerned, they knew it was really good.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I ended up with a really big team,
Mm.
and eventually took charge of all the marketing. So it was, it helped me in terms of progress because it meant that people could see I could do the job
Mm-hmm.
because I understood how to negotiate.
Mm. And how to not work
Yeah,
other people, but how to flex and adapt for other people. Could you could you say when you walk into a room, you need to suddenly go to yourself, oh, okay, green, which is
yeah,
S, which is the reserved, people focused. Could you just tell just from like how someone's desk is set up
yeah.
just by walking in? Talk me through that.
Right, if I walk into a room and it's an absolutely clear desk, the only thing on it is the thing we're dealing with today, I know pretty closely then we are dealing with someone who's a red. Because that's how they clear.
Mm-hmm.
They clear the desk, they get everything absolutely full. If I walk in and I can't see the desk behind the piles and piles of files, I'm thinking, right, probably blue. Yeah.
Yeah, covered in their
um,
detail.
Yeah, all the stuff is just piles of detail. If I go in there and I start to see there's the picture of the cat and the dog and the kids, and there's it all looks very, very cozy, and it's all very warm and cozy and fluffy. I think we're probably talking green here. We're probably talking a relator, someone who loves people, and everything is related to people. Yeah, if I go in and it's just a bit messy, and yeah, everything's a little bit all over the place, and there's yeah, you're looking at yours because I'm talking about you right now. And I'm really work hard to try and keep this mine under control, because I mean, I used to get all sorts of problems. People say, how can you work with a desk in such a mess? I said, well, I know exactly where everything is. I know exactly how far down this particular pile of paper was last week's. But
Yeah.
yeah, yellows are a bit messy. We because we don't like to be behind the desk for very, very long. It's off and out and doing and getting on with stuff.
It is.
So good thing every yellow should get themselves a very good organized secretary who
Yes.
keeps things in order.
I do need one of those because I'm very yellow and very red. And I'm looking here now and I'm thinking, yeah, the calculator's out, sunglasses, another pair of glasses, another book. Oh, got nail varnish and some tissues and some AirPods and a makeup bag. And on this side is, I'm obviously very red on this side because this is the side of the desk I'm working on to do the podcast today. So I have got my basically one pad, which is where I do my podcast recordings. And this is really organized and structured. And that is just carnage. So you've just described my yellow and red desk all in one, which is amazing.
Yeah, I think we do move around a bit, and we move based upon our projects. Um, but I've a simple thing I've had to do, because I have, like, they look like shoe boxes, but actually they're designed for storage, and I have about 10 of them in my office, and each of them for particular groups of things, so that if I think, right, if something goes wrong, I've got one that just says devices, and I know in there is all, there are phones, and there are bits and pieces for chargers, and there are batteries, and it's all there. Otherwise, it would be all over the place.
Yeah, yeah. But it's and like you say, we're a blend of all the different styles. We're not just like one in a box. I'm not just yellow. But it's that whole recognizing it so that we know that we can flex and adapt. We work in our natural flow because that's who we are. But we know, like you were saying at the very start of this conversation, if you know that they are more assertive and they're more assertive than you are, if you start mirroring that behavior and start flexing and adapting. But it's where people don't have any self-awareness that you can see.
Yeah.
I mean, you must have been in meetings over your time and seen different styles run meetings so differently.
Oh, and I learned. I had a boss who was actually, he wasn't an extreme red, but he was definitely red in terms of the way he operated. And I got him to come to a meeting once, and the meeting was being run by somebody who was very analytical. And so the biggest problem I found with anybody who's either analytical or green and blue, they're absolutely rubbish decision makers. They really, really don't like making them.
They can make them, they just take a little bit longer.
Well, yeah, the blues just never have enough data, and the greens are always worried that they're going to make a decision that will upset someone, so they keep. I used to run workshops on this, and we'd get, I get everybody to figure out who they are, and then we'd put them in the four corners of the room, and I'd say, right, I want a list of positive and negative characteristics of your particular style. And we look at the reds, and the reds are at war. They're trying to determine not the list, but who's actually going to run this meeting. Who's in charge? There's this battle for control going on. And they finally get there, and then they're very, very efficient at putting down the list. The Greens are writing a list, and then you see so much crossing out when they put something like, oh, you don't agree? Oh, okay, fine, we'll cross that one out. Well, they're constantly trying to please everybody and get a list which actually everybody agrees with. The blues, you think, where are the blues gone? They're checking out all the other groups to see what they're saying before they actually put anything on their list. And the yellows, we think, well, can you just get on with the job and stop the party? And this huge list of positive qualities going on the board. And on the negative side, you've got have a problem seeing negative qualities.
That is so yellow.
It is, and but what I found was amazing was just watching these groups. You could see the characteristics. So anybody who said, "Oh, I don't believe in all this stuff; it's not right," and then you watch it, and you say, "I'm sorry, but watch. It's actually happening physically. It actually, it comes apart.
Do you have those where you've then got the person in the group and they're thinking, this isn't me, and you can see that coming through?
I think
Yeah.
that's it. You see people, and you can see they're like a fish out of water. They're looking at it, listening. This is not really me. And I just gently go up to them and say, "Look, go and have a quick look at the yellow group because you might find that fits better, or go and have a look at the green, because you can generally start to tell. Reds often, I mean, they like to dress smart. They like to look in charge and look right. Greens much more connected with the earth, so you're going to, it's much more going to be sandals and long hippie clothes. And the blues are very analytical. It's scientists there. I used to sell cookware for a living, and I did this by going into people's homes, and they'd arranged a group of people there, and I'd cook a meal for 14 people in their kitchen, serve it all up, and using this particular cookware, which was all very special cookware. You could stack pans on top of each other, and it was all fun and easy cooking. But I never did the selling at the party. Would always then do the selling at a later stage. But I always had to watch out in case I had a blue at the party, because during the presentation, if I said something a bit technical, they will almost always jump in. Can you explain that? Can you? And before I knew where I was, they'd taken my whole presentation, which was all about having fun and making a dinner party, into what's anodized aluminium. How does that actually work? You said that was actually used in the space. Before I know where I am, we're into a huge technical engineering discussion on the manufacture of the pans, which was irrelevant.
Well, irrelevant to your sale, but very relevant to them
But they need
buying.
to know,
Yeah.
yes. So
Yeah.
when I knew, but that would help me because I knew when I went to sell with them, I'd have a few manuals with me.
Yes, because then they could read that while you weren't there and digest the detail.
Yes.
Because you can never sell to an analytical blue sea there and then. Well, you can. Okay, you can't say you can't, but more times than not, you won't be
Yes.
able to sell on the day.
If someone is task orientated, that's the reds and the blues, I knew I needed information. The blues need to read it. The reds need to see I've got it.
Yeah.
They're not going to read it. Just, that's something that somebody else does, but they need to see that it's there. So as long as they saw that it was there, that's fine.
Yeah.
What I also found was interesting, and I did a workshop with somebody who'd actually taken Shakespeare's plays, in particular Henry V, and looked at the characteristics, the four qualities, in the way in which Shakespeare had employed and used those, the characters that he created, and also the sort of the process that Henry V went through during the play, and used this as a metaphor for the whole process. A very interesting way. What was interesting out of that particular workshop was to notice that around 60% of people male. If you look at the blue and the reds, 60% of people who come out and identify as either blue or red are male.
Okay.
40% female. Whereas if you look at the more, and that's the more task orientated people. If you look at the reds and yellow and green, who are more people orientated, 60% female.
Interesting.
So there was that shift. It's not about saying they're all, but there's a greater tendency. And if you look at the kind of jobs that green and yellow people do, marketing, promotion, on acting and such like on the yellows, healthcare support, and spiritual stuff on the greens. If you go to a spiritual fair, it's going to be predominantly women there. If you go to a marketing course now, wasn't the case. But if you sit on a marketing course, it's nearly always going to be women who are doing the marketing. The PR departments, the marketing departments are all run by women. The human resources department tend to be run by women. The engineering departments and the finance departments much more likely to be men. More men run businesses, more men in charge.
But how do we change that, though? Are you saying that it's the fact that more task-focused people are male and more people-focused are female? Do you think we can shift it?
From having changed gender, because I then had to look at that, having swapped and moved from one side to the other, I started to look at the way in which men and women work and thought, no, this I can see how this is happening. Women are more people orientated. It's natural, a natural part of being female. I think it's the way in which the brain is wired up from fetal development. Women are going to produce children, so women naturally have a stronger tendency towards looking after people. We've done all sorts of things to try and shift this, haven't we? We've been trying to get women into STEM and women into engineering. Doesn't mean that women can't be very good engineers. A lot of women are chemists and take chemical degrees, but they're probably more likely to end up working for Boots than for BP. Okay. And I know this, I've done some work for BP. Yeah. I know that it's a very, very male dominated. Doesn't mean that women aren't there, doesn't mean women can't be very successful. But it's going to be a male dominated industry, construction, manufacturing, those sorts of things. Whereas if you look at healthcare, if you look at people related work, it's very strongly female dominated. I think, and this is the thing I think we have to be careful of. It's not making stereotypes and saying, oh, men do this, women do that. It's just that that's a natural tendency for men and women to go where they feel most comfortable.
And that's more of a neuroscience thing, you would say, in terms of just naturally when we are born with our chromosomes, etc. That's generally where we end up going towards as a natural tendency.
I think, I mean, for me, because I had to try and understand why was I transgender, why did I wish I'd been born female? So I actually started to look into the science behind that. A lot of work done in Holland on this, and it became quite clear that the brains of men and women are different. And even when we, for example, when we do brain scans and use MRI scans to look at behavior, we'll see that women use both sides of the brain more easily than men do. Men tend to be left brain dominated, which is task related. Right brain, more people related. So we can actually see, looking at the brain when women are doing activities and compare it to men, women are more rounded. If a man gets a stroke, it hits the left side of the brain, he'll probably lose speech function and will never properly regain it. A woman is much more likely to regain that because they can shift and use speech function from the right brain more effectively. So there is all sorts of evidence to show that there are differences, that trans men are more like physical men, trans women are more like natal cisgender women. And it just helps to understand, there are differences. And, I don't think it should be. I think we get too heavily immersed in this whole idea of equality. Everything's got to be equal. No. Fair.
Yes.
Is what we want. Equal. No. I don't want to be treated exactly the same. And this is the problem when you get into an organization. I see men tend to organize businesses. They've been organized. Men came out of the military, they went into business, and basically they still run it as a command and control system with a fight to get to the top. Very much the way men like to operate. I talk to women who run businesses and they say, well, for our shareholders, we showed this organization chart, but actually it's more like this, and it's just a mess of networks.
Or it's more of a flat structure, but rather than a hierarchical structure.
Yes, it's more flat. And a woman, the way I describe it is this: a man wants to get to the top of his organization, a woman likes to be at the center of it. And a woman knows everything that's going on. She knows all the family and the connections of everybody who's working there. Much more people related. For men, it's about get the job done. So we have a command and control system that gets the whole thing focused. Women like things to be more fair. I'm talking generally. I'm not talking all. There are. I know some women who are, that even men are scared.
You mentioned her at the start, Thatcher. Yeah.
Yes,
She's
yeah.
no longer with us, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
We are.
it's
We are
interesting thing about
different.
Margaret Thatcher was that she only ever had one woman in the whole 11 years. Only one other woman was in the cabinet, and that was just for 1 year.
I was at school then, so I can't remember. Just the fact that she took my milk away.
Oh,
We won't go into the politics.
let's not go into politics.
No, exactly. But it's interesting that you say, I mean, so in terms of the fairness, and we talk about like gender equality on the boards, and we want to see more female.
Yes.
Is that because we want to change the structure of the way that businesses work? We need a balance, don't we, in the gender side of things, but actually a balance in terms of the personality side.
Well, your balance. You're trying to get. It's in exactly the same when you're trying to build up a team. You start to look at the different qualities. There's a tendency, if we're not careful, to recruit in our own image. But if you can imagine trying to run a business that was all yellows,
Oh God, no.
nothing would get done. Everything would be half done, wouldn't it? Everything would be still waiting to be finished.
Yeah.
You'd make some decisions, but you'd change them. But people would find it uncomfortable working in that environment. So you need your greens to sort of keep the people you need. Where people are going to fit best within the organization. You need your technical. My sister was a programmer and would have fitted in very well with some of with the technical teams. And you need them there, but they will procrastinate when it comes to making a decision, trying to get more and more data. So you've got to have some red in there that says, hey, decision, make it, okay, right or wrong.
Yeah, you're right. In terms of when I look at the Queen's Council that I built up, I absolutely could have surrounded myself with loads of yellows. And yes, there's probably more yellow on the Queen's Council than there is, but I definitely, when I was recruiting, I thought, first of all, I was like, I need to get some blue in here and some green in here, because when I'm going out to see clients, I know full well that I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I mean, I flex and adapt, absolutely. But if I'm going to go and work with a group of engineers, I'm looking at my Queen's Council thinking, that's so more Ben and James and Anita. It's not me, because I can do it, but it's exhausting to sit in that, flex yourself too much, isn't it? We work in a natural style.
It's interesting. When I first started studying it, so we looked at. I was working in. So later I got myself in working in technology, working for a tech company, and the company was very connected and did a lot of work with IBM, who at the time, people don't remember this, IBM was the big dominant global tech company. Apple was just a little tiny side idea, but the whole thing we found was very interesting. When you're selling big computer systems, the nature of the sales team changes in time. So what IBM found was that when salespeople came in and when they tended to recruit people who were more yellow as their sales team, and the yellows are brilliant at opening doors, brilliant at getting the first sales in place, brilliant at bringing in the new business from new areas. But with computers, it's not about making a sale. It's actually about starting a relationship, because if someone's going to invest millions of pounds in computer software, they want to make sure that it's actually going to be supported and they're still going to have the help. So once you got past about 3 or 4 years, what you started to look at was the nature of the kind of salespeople who survived was blue. The yellows had all gone. So they were only there for a couple of years. They opened doors, they brought stuff in, and they were good at doing that. But if you wanted people to manage the account and put and hold the account and keep it going and keep the relationship there so that you could upsell and everything else, definitely was only going to happen with blues and dealing with that.
Yeah,
So-
I've always said your yellows, even your reds, they're your hunters, but your reserves are your farmers, and they'll be the ones that keep the accounts for longer. And yeah, that's fascinating. And there's a whole podcast what I need to do just on sales. In fact, I have recorded one which talked about the sales cycle, because it's, and I see so many people. I look at myself when I was in sales thinking I was so yellow. I'm sure people just only bought from me to shut me up and move me out the door.
Yes.
Oh,
But I think, it's a natural place for people who are yellow to move towards, because it's all about people, it's all about getting out there, it's about socializing and building relationships, and that's natural.
yeah.
But I mean, and I look at my business, I am terrible at following up. I'm terrible at keeping it. I get the sale, I do the speech, and I don't get anything. I was listening to Nigel Risner this morning at a presentation, and I thought, no, I am not doing anywhere near enough work at maintaining relationships so that I get future work. I'm just off looking for the next one.
Next bright shiny thing. Where is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Rikki, it's amazing, and I could talk to you for hours, like I could on most of my guests, because I just love talking about behaviours, really. What piece of wisdom would you like to leave our listeners with?
Oh, yeah, I think in terms of this whole behavior thing, it's study it, but learn to be able to recognize people's behaviors very quickly. You don't need to complete forms and do computer analysis and everything else. You need to be able to quickly recognize where somebody is and then move towards them.
Yeah.
Pick a shift in their direction. If they're more assertive than you, become less assertive. If they're more task orientated, become more task focused. If they're and the opposite is true.
Yeah. Flexing and adapting.
It's moving towards people, and that shift, and this is we've learned from NLP, moving towards people means that they move towards you, and then you come together at a place where you can actually work very well.
Yeah. And the world just needs to be full more of people who are self-aware, which is why we have this podcast. It starts with you. And if people want to get a hold of you, Rikki, where can they find you?
Best place to find me is on LinkedIn.
I will put all of you those in the show notes as well. And it is Rikki Arundel, Rikki.
Yes, Rikki Arundel.
It's been wonderful talking. Thank you for being my guest on It Starts With You.
My pleasure.
Bye for now.
How has this conversation had an impact on you? What have you learnt? What will you do differently? Do leave a review on Apple or Spotify on It Starts With You podcast. And also leave a comment down below. Do also then connect with me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. And why not even join the Facebook group It Starts With You and keep the learning ongoing. Thank you for listening.